Build the best football team in the SEC conference. We're going to build the best football program in the SEC conference.
You have now arrived at Stadium and Gale.
The kick, it's been blocked again! How about it? It's been blocked again! It's going to heat one deep down the field. It's going to be to the goal line. It's going to be gone! It's a touchdown! And the Gators have won the game! Tyree Cleveland! How about it? I can't believe what I just saw! Dropping back to throw. Pops and fires the ball over the middle. It's over! It's over! Norrick's got a touchdown! Oh, man! Norrick's got a touchdown! Ahmad Black, in his final game as a Gator, takes it all the way home and sends Urban out the winner.
You have now arrived at Stadium and Gale.
Boys and girls, ladies and gents, welcome to another episode of Stadium and Gale. It's your favorite Uncle Silk.
It's Dan.
And Delatory.
Top of the top, Monday morning. Welcome to everybody that's watching us live. Same corner, same time, man. How you guys doing?
Doing good. Nice little weekend. Nice little relaxing weekend. Some time on the water, all that kind of fun stuff. But relaxing all the way. So I got a busy few weeks coming up here. So use this time to recharge my body. Treat my body like a temple.
Were you captaining or a passenger?
I was captaining. Went over to Beer Can Island, which is just south of Tampa here. Hung out there for 4 or 5 hours. Heat index, like 110
Wild.
here in Tampa. Yeah, just unbearably hot. But, you got to do what you got to do.
Yeah, the team was out not in the indoor yesterday. 108 heat index here in Gainesville.
Ooh. Shed some pounds.
Just not enjoying being outside, except for
No.
Silk, who's training for the Tour de France.
Yeah.
Man. Tyrone Armstrong around here getting my bicycle in. It's definitely, the heat has definitely been different. I've been trying to go out. My goal was to go out. I look at the weather app and figure out the hottest part of the day and say, I'm going to do a bicycle ride at that time. I caved in on Saturday and Sunday. It was just too vicious. So I took the weekend off. No bicycling this weekend.
So we were supposed to go to Busch Gardens on Saturday. I guess the Tampa Gator Club was doing like a small event there. Like, I think they just got discounted tickets. They had a couple of different things that they were going to do. I woke up Saturday morning, went to the gym, came home, walked the dog, came back in. I said, Brooke, I just don't think that this heat at 8 o'clock in the morning is going to feel very, very good at 10 to 4. So we skipped out on that. So sorry, Tampa Gator Club wasn't able to make it, but next time do it in like October, maybe February.
It's hot everywhere. It's going to be 94 in Salt Lake today.
Ooh, it's a dry heat though, Nick. That's what they'll tell you.
No humidity out there.
Bro,
They got
Al
some
Gorman
takes,
went
though.
on to
We'll
something.
Yes.
Other than that, how was your weekend? Nick, you just so practice and nothing else? Nothing in the personal life?
Yeah, they so Florida does like 3 days on, 1 day off, 3 days on. So when we got Saturday off, I just did nothing. Didn't go outside. Just hung out with the wife at the house. It's been a lot with that 6 day schedule. So just relaxed, recharged.
Yeah, Saturday I had to step out to my son had football practice at 10 a.m. So I had to step out at 10 a.m., go out to Riviera. But by the time 12:30 hit and it was wrapping up practice, it was just a different type of heat, bro. So after that, man, I was the same vibe. I was out. I felt like I practiced. It felt like I did 2 a days, ran the sprints, all of that, bro. After that, just sitting there watching got me tired. The coach had him do up downs for like 15 minutes straight. And he was just chanting, who's ready to quit? I was just like, man, I missed this.
I'm ready.
Yeah, I'm out.
I'm
out, man.
You're like all the parents here sweating on the sidelines are ready to quit. Can you get our sons off the field, please?
Yeah, they lost about 4 players, man, no doubt.
He had some takers.
For sure, man. It's a different coach out there in Riviera. But good coaches, good league. Excited. Working with the Elams out there. Seeing Matt, seeing Abe this weekend. So that was always good vibes. Seeing, some former Gators out there or whatever, man. But ready for football altogether. Let's get into some football. We got a lot of spring camp takes and news.
Yeah, it's spring and fall camp takes here. We can revert back to a few months ago, but yeah, let's get into the show. Before we do that, if you're watching on YouTube, please hit that like button. Super chat questions go in. We'll try to read the chat throughout the show as well. See if you guys have any additional questions. But super chat questions get pushed to the front of the show. But as always, we do want to shout out Alan Horn with State Farm Insurance. If you are in Florida, Georgia, Tennessee, or Alabama, and you are looking for automobile insurance, life insurance, boaters insurance, homeowners insurance, whatever it might be, business insurance, give Alan a call, 706-692-2888, or visit him at alanhorninsurance.com. That's ALANHORNE insurance.com. Again, if you're in Florida, Georgia, Tennessee, or Alabama, and you are shopping around your rates, which you should do at least once a year, if not every 6 months. Insurance companies don't care about you, but Alan Horn does. So go give him a call, 706-692-2888. All right, gentlemen, big news out of fall camp thus far. Not big news in terms of a surprise, but just that we finally got Graham Mertz announced as a starting quarterback for the Florida Gators a couple of days ago. Again, no surprise, but Nick Silk, any final thoughts before we hit off Mertz Mania here?
I think what ultimately did it was just Graham kind of becoming more familiar with the playbook, processing faster, his experience, obviously. I have seen him hitting those short intermediate passes. Everyone that I talk to says he's a guy that is going to get you really high football IQ, going to get you in and out of the right plays. And the team has taken to him. I mean, for the past 2 months, guys have been talking about Graham Mertz being a leader, things like that. So I guess it was breaking news, but not really breaking news because it was kind of expected at this point.
Right. Yeah, just been waiting on it to be announced. We've already been hearing, behind the scenes that it was Mertz and then everybody else. We talked QB2 a little bit here, but just ready to see what it all is. He got the number 15 on. He got the nod. I'm hearing some good things, like Nick said, with the intermediate throws and the leadership and getting us in and out of bad plays. So just excited to see what it looks like this fall. It's been a lot of takes about the quarterback position all offseason. And then as we get closer to camp, you start seeing the fans turn into fans and giving some hope, and the vibes start changing a little bit. That's why I didn't waste my time in April and May crying, because fans are going to be fans, and we'll adjust when the games get ready to get played and be a little bit more rational and patient. Once the bullets start flying, we'll see what it is. But right now, the vibes is good when it pertains to quarterback. We just in wait and see mode.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, we expected it. We thought that Graham Mertz was going to be the starter when he came to Florida. Obviously, a guy that had a bit of a rocky career at Wisconsin, highly talented guy coming out of high school. But again, Florida brought him in to be a starting quarterback. They needed a starting quarterback, and either he was going to be the starter or he was going to push Jack Miller or Max Brown to be that starter. So he wins that spot. Also gets the aux cord in the locker room. Nick pre-show was a little bit surprised that a guy from Overland Park, Kansas, right outside of Kansas City, spent some time in Wisconsin, was given the aux cord. Nick, what do you think he's playing? Is it a little baby, or is he putting on Morgan Wallen?
I don't know. I mean, who am I to speak on people's music? I played a sea shanty as my song of the week one time. Just surprised me. Maybe Graham's like that. I just didn't think that
he got the dance moves. I seen him and Pearsall get off on the clips a little bit, so he got some sauce. He know how to swag a little bit.
I just didn't think a kid from Kansas who spent 4 years at Wisconsin would come down to the University of Florida and be the DJ. So color me surprised.
I wasn't surprised after I seen the dance moves with him and Pearsall, bro. I was like, all right, he got a little rhythm. You feel me? He might know what he's doing a little bit. As far as what he listening to, probably who's Midwest? Who's jumping in the Midwest rapper wise? Nobody.
Well, I mean, you have Chicago there in the Midwest.
A little Keith G.
I'm looking up famous Midwestern rappers. Twista, maybe.
I
That's old
Common.
for him. Twist is old for him.
Lupe Fiasco. These are all old names that I'm going through that I know. Old. Nelly's from the other side. Kansas City's split Missouri and Kansas.
Showing your age, bro.
St. Louis. Maybe he's throwing some Nelly on. Do you want to go and take a ride with me?
All right, then.
No? All right. So anyway, Graham Mertz got the aux cord, hopefully not playing Nelly, Common, and Lupe Fiasco, but who knows? So that's the big news.
Dirk. I think you got some Lil Dirk going.
Say what?
Some Lil Dirk.
Lil Dirk, okay.
Yeah. That's what the kids are jamming.
Well, Graham, we know you listen to this podcast. Just let us know what you're throwing on the aux cord there. Let's see. Let's get into the other piece of big news that came out of camp. Unfortunately, expected starter defensive end Justus Boone, who I think we are all very, very excited about to be on the opposite side of Prince William McMillan, does go out for the year with an ACL injury. Tough break for the Gators. Nick, let's talk a little bit about that, and then we'll talk a little bit about that replacement of that position.
Yeah. So there was like a little debate on it. So the defensive ends and I think they're calling them the edge rushers, are both getting coached by Mike Peterson this year. So there was some debate on whether Boone was a defensive end or, that jack linebacker. I think he could have played both. Not a starter, but kind of a starter, depending on Princely and depending on what kind of formation you're in. But certainly a kid that had worked his butt off. Even before he was playing last year, someone who had already gotten the ear of the locker room, demanded respect, commanded respect, had turned himself into a leader. So tough break, especially happening, just celebrating, running off the field in a scrimmage, not even getting to play a game. So I think trying to fill that role, immediately Tyreek Sapp moved from Sean Spencer's group yesterday into Mike Peterson's group. So Tyreek Sapp was an edge rusher in high school. They got him to Florida and they're like, hey, you need to play defensive tackle. And he's put on like 40 pounds. And now they're like, hey, man, by the way, for your fourth year, after putting all that weight, we need you to go back outside. So I don't know if he'll stay at that 270 or try to drop a little bit of weight, but Tyreek Sapp will probably be the first guy that gets that look. And then you start looking at some younger guys, Kelby Collins, TJ Searcy, and Jack Pyburn.
Yeah, no, Jack Pyburn. The hive is heavy right now for Jack Pyburn, especially from the folks in Jacksonville that are eagerly awaiting his arrival. Heard some good things out of camp, out of him. So your thoughts on Justus Boone?
It's more of the same. I want to regurgitate a lot what Nick said. A guy that we was going to count on to make some plays this fall. But we're deep in the trenches. I'm high on that front seven altogether. So just hearing the guys like Pyburn, hearing he had a great scrimmage and put up some numbers. I'm very high on Tyreek Sapp as well. I thought he was more suited just from his frame-wise, more suited at defensive end regardless. Didn't really couldn't fill out the whole defensive tackle vibe. So him moving back outside, very high on Kelby Collins. So, a young boy that got on campus in early as far as and got to play some spring ball. So he has some experience under him as far as, getting himself ready and playing against college bodies and offensive linemen. So I'm not down at the position at all. I think we got a lot of good players at that position that we can rotate and not lose a lot of production. Just unfortunate for Justus Boone. We'll see what he look like when he get back. But I'm still optimistic at the position and also my front seven.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it definitely hurts the depth. One of the things I've been talking about is just how many snaps some of these defensive tackles had to play last year, just how many snaps Princely had to play last year, and that you were getting to a point where you could rotate guys and keep those defensive linemen fresh throughout the course of a game. And this hurts that depth because this is a guy who would have played a ton of snaps for Florida.
Yeah, last season played all 13 games as a redshirt freshman, 24 tackles, 2.5 tackles for loss, and 1.5 sacks. So unfortunate for the Gators. Certainly we wish him a quick recovery, a healthy recovery. It's sad when it's a non-contact injury celebration post-play type of situation. But again, we wish you the best of luck Justus, and hope that you can come back next year, and re-earn that spot and re-earn those snaps. But like you guys said, there is a lot of depth there. Tyreek Sapp is the name that a lot of fans are clamoring for. Kelby Collins is a guy that obviously you recruited, beat out Alabama, beat out a number of other big schools. As a freshman, you're still going to have those mistakes there. Thought Boone would have been, that nice depth piece. Again, Florida just has this situation where they have a lot of really young, talented players that have been infused in the program over the last year or two, but you need those third, fourth, and fifth year guys to be able to take a majority of those snaps when they can. And so it's an unfortunate situation, but certainly we lift our prayers up to Justus Boone and hope that he has a healthy recovery, and looking forward to having him back for next season. Nick, want to talk, we're going to go a little bit out of sync here. Just deal with it. If you listen to this program, we don't follow a traditional order. Jack Pyburn, a guy that a lot of fans are excited about as well. Kind of came on late last year, played some time on special teams and everything else, but a lot of excitement out of him. What do you think his role might be in replacing?
Yeah, he kind of like a spark plug on special teams last year. Sophomore from your favorite county in the state, and wasn't like an elite wrestler. So when you talk about a wrestler on the offensive or defensive line, those are guys that understand leverages, and obviously hard workers. So I think Jack's got a ton of potential. He showed it a little bit. He had a bunch of sacks, or I think 2-3 sacks in the scrimmage, and he's a guy who I think will play, behind Princely. Certainly be back on special teams. You're going to need somebody to step up, whether it's one of the freshmen, whether it's Jack Pyburn, you're going to need somebody. And Pyburn has, the experience of playing 8 games last year.
Perfect. Well, let's get into fall practice updates for another week behind us, including a scrimmage that they had just a few days ago. But before we do that, let's give a shout out to our friends over at the Gatorverse. Go visit thegatorverse.io. You can get a Trevor Etienne signed card there. There's discounts when you come to Gainesville as well, both at restaurants and Airbnb type situations as well. So go visit them, Gatorverse.io. You can support dozens of Florida Gator athletes with your subscription to the Gatorverse. So again, that's GATA verse, VERSE.io. So Gatorverse.io. Go support student athletes. It is the newest way to support University of Florida athletes. So again, Gatorverse.io. Nick, why don't you go ahead and give us a rundown of the past week? We'll get into some injuries. We'll get into some specifics, but from your time out there, over the last 7 days, what have you noticed about the team?
I think the biggest thing that we see when we go out there is just kind of, and I don't know if it's just handling the load that some guys have and trying to keep them healthy, but just seeing guys jump in and out of those non-contact jerseys, and I don't know if it's a cause for concern, but like when I walked out to practice and I see Micah Mazuka still non-contact even though he was going through some stuff, and then Richie Leonard is in a non-contact off to the side working, and I'm like, okay, well that's your 2 starting guards, that's not good. And then both of them come back, so I think it's just load management. Pause. But that's one thing. Like guys have been going down, whether it's just for a day or two. I think Florida doesn't have the depth to withstand a lot of injuries, specifically on the offensive line. I think at tackle right now, you're looking at Damian, Barber, and then Lindell Hudson from FIU is really the third tackle that you feel comfortable with right now. So to me, you got to keep these guys healthy. I think that's the biggest thing. The other one is, and I wrote about it, I think yesterday, the freshman receivers are ready. And I don't know, I think Ricky obviously is proven. I think Caleb Douglas will make a name for himself this year. There's some guys like Jaquavion Frazier's. This is the year of like put up or shut up. You got to start producing. If not, then like Aiden Mizell, Trey Wilson, and Andy Jean are going to be coming to get some reps, to get some starts. I really like the progression of those guys. So I think those are the biggest things. And then Arlis Boardingham. I mean, I keep talking about him. You got to figure out a way to get the ball in his hands.
I love it. Let's go position by position here. Let's just talk offense. We'll do a bigger breakdown of the offensive line and defensive tackles on today's show. But Nick, let's talk a little bit about quarterback. Obviously, Graham Mertz, we've talked about, is the named starter. Jack Miller out. Looks like he was doing some backpedaling sleds on the picture that was posted. Any cause for concern other than a broken heart of Jack Miller?
The way that Billy's labeling injuries now, upper body, lower body, it was
love it.
Upper body parentheses broken heart. No, Florida told us after last night before media that it was just to rest his arm from throwing. So not expected to be anything serious there. And I think we touched on it last week. I wonder what the quarterback situation would be if, knock on wood, Graham Mertz were to get hurt in the first quarter against Utah. Who would you go to versus, hey, we need a little spark and Max Brown can give you something with his legs. So quarterback, no controversy there. It's going to be Graham Mertz as long as he's healthy.
Silk, what are your thoughts? You think Max Brown, Jack Miller, what's your take there?
My take's still the same. I just think Max Brown. If we're going to, it just depends on the game and the situations, like we said before. If it's Utah and Graham was to go down, I would think it would probably be Jack Miller just from an inexperienced standpoint with Max Brown. But as far as ceiling, I think he provided a higher ceiling in his capability to leave the pocket and do some things with his legs. Just want to harp on a little bit more what he was saying with the receivers. Those young boys just have the ability. They're saying that Graham is doing very good with intermediate throws. These guys have the ability to catch an immediate throw and intermediate throw and turn it into a big game with their speed of Eugene Wilson and Andy Mazzell. So that's going to be the difference. I do like Douglas' speed, but some of the other guys aren't like Jaquavion Frazier's aren't burners. They're more possession receivers. So those young boys just provide some upside with catching an intermediate pass and being able to make guys miss and take it to the crib. And I seen in just the clips or the highlights that the football Twitter put out, Mazzell scoring some touchdowns and then look like he's just catching the ball and not running guys. So that's going to be the biggest difference with the young boys at receiver.
Yeah. I know Eugene Wilson, just to move to wide receivers, was named to ESPN's top 50 newcomers list. So that's certainly a good honor to have for him. And the expectations are going to be high there. Nick, let's move to wide receiver, then we'll go back to running back. Obviously, every fan is excited about the speed and the quality of the new guys that are coming in. Obviously, Ricky Pearsall, Caleb Douglas are names that everybody knows. Is there any other names that have stuck out or not stuck out this year in camp so far?
I think I've been really impressed with Caleb Douglas. Obviously, a kid that played quarterback for most of his high school career, switched to receiver late. He was still learning the position. I think you'll see a jump as he gets more comfortable, not only with being a receiver, but the speed of the game, things like that. Ricky Pearsall. And then I'm looking for a third receiver. I think right now that's probably Marcus Burke. Okay. But other than that, I think I really see an opportunity for the freshmen to get some time. You've got Ty Bowman, Khalil Jackson's a guy that they're really high on, and then outside of that, it's the young guys.
What do you think the order is of the young guys? Do you think there is of who would see the field first? Obviously, there's going to be, right? But do you think that list has started to make itself known yet, or not yet?
I don't know that it is yet.
Okay.
And that could be a week-to-week thing, especially when you're talking about younger players. It might just be who had a good week of practice and knew the install for that week. When you're talking about freshmen, some of them just it takes longer to click. These guys have all the physical talent in the world, but you can't replicate, game speed in a game day environment. So that'll be something they have to experience for themselves.
Who would you, and obviously we're not there, but who would you guys have as wide receiver number one of the freshmen? Just a little pontificating.
Yeah, I don't have enough information to be honest with you, but I think they all bring something different to the table. I think Eugene Wilson needs some work on his route running. He's explosive, but I think there's some things he can clean up in his route running. And Andy Jean is a more polished route runner. Top end speed, it could go either Mazzell or Eugene Wilson. I think they all bring something different to the table, but Mazzell has top end speed, but he's a better route runner than Eugene. So I just think it just depends on what the offense is trying to do. If you're trying to do a jet sweep or throw a bubble screen, that could be, a play you want to get to Andy Mazzell or Eugene Wilson. But if it's a post corner, and that may be something that Andy Jean could set up and do. I just think they bring something different to the table, and it's just a crapshoot. I don't know if there's a particular pecking order between the three.
Yeah.
If I had to go who get the most touches, I would think Eugene Wilson gets the most touches this fall if I had to pick one.
I like that. I know that they play different positions. Appreciate you pointing that out, Harrison. Just more so just on the field. Nick, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I don't know that there's a pecking order just yet, but I think, and then if we're talking overall touches, I think you'll see Eugene Wilson on special teams. So if we're not just talking receptions, I think Andy Mizell's probably made more plays than the other two, but I think I like Andy Jean from just an overall standpoint right now. Obviously, Mizell has elite speed. I think I like Jean, and then I mean, if Ricky, like I've said it a bunch of times, if Ricky had gone to the NFL, I think Trey Wilson would be starting it in the slot at some point, sooner rather than later.
Do you think we see, I know Khalil Jackson got put on scholarship again this year. Do you think we see him play much at wide receiver this year? I know he played a lot of special teams last year. Played up in some mop-up time into the game type of stuff. But do you think we'll see him much on the field this year?
Yeah, I mean, there's not a lot of guys outside of the three freshmen.
Right.
When you run down the list, it's who's going to get those reps. Is it Marcus Burke? Is it Khalil Jackson? There's really, and then Jaquavion Frazier. I think there's three guys for that other outside spot. Across from Caleb Douglas. So I think you'll see a lot of those guys, and they'll rotate. They'll have a healthy rotation. You'll see all three freshmen getting in, and then you'll see Frazier's, Jackson, and Burke as well.
I know that Keith Niebuhr brought this up, and it's both a good sign. It's a double-edged sword here, right? It's great that Florida has three young freshman studs at wide receiver that seem to be transitioning to fall camp really, really well. The double-edged sword there is that you don't have a lot of juniors, seniors, and upperclassmen, level talent that are taking those reps. But is this the most excited you've been about a wide receiving group of freshmen? Keith brought up that Florida really hasn't had a group contribute as freshmen since, I think, going back, I think he said Riedel and Ike in 1994. So, almost 30 years ago. Some people brought up Percy Harvin and Riley Cooper. Riley Cooper didn't play a ton as a freshman at wide receiver, but is this the most excited that we've been about a group of freshman receivers in recent history?
Probably.
Yeah, as a group, yeah. Callaway got off as Paul's as a freshman as well. But as a group, I haven't had any thoughts of maybe these guys. I think at some point, like all these guys going to be very important pieces to wins or to certain drives, special teams, all of that. And I think Pearsall's also a guy that could go on the outside in that way. Because if you're trying to get your best receivers on the field in that regard, and Eugene Wilson is probably going to be one of your most explosive players. Like, I think we can move Pearsall to the outside. I believe I saw that somewhere where he's getting some reps on the outside as well to be able to get a guy like Eugene at the slot. So there's a lot of flexibility, and I'm not scared to put three freshmen out there at those positions. These guys are from Florida. They play big-time football already. They play with some of the best competition when it pertains to camps. And they're proving themselves playing against our secondary, which is no slouches out there. So if they could play versus our secondary and our corners, I think they could play versus any secondary in the country. So I just believe in what we got at receiver. And from the veterans, too, I think we're sleeping on Marcus Burke a little bit. I think Burke is going to be very good. I like Caleb Douglas. He just got to shore up his hands and catch some of those balls that he dropped at the Florida State game. He got to bring those in. And we already speak highly of Pearsall. So I think we got a good balance of upperclassmen and freshmen to balance this thing out a little bit.
Yeah, I think that puts the Gators at probably 6 to 7 pretty reliable receivers there, which you're usually only putting 3 on the field at one time. So Florida should, I'm very interested to see the maturation process of Eugene Wilson, Aiden Mizell, and Andy Jean all seem really bought in and all seem like they will get some considerable playing time even early this season. So excited to watch that and watch them, with their speed and space, which is what Florida and Billy Gonzalez have said that they really want out of this group and this next group of wide receivers that they're recruiting as well. Running back seems like we've been tooting this horn for a long time now. The three-headed monster of Montrell Johnson, Trevor Etienne, and Cam Carroll. Things seem to be going really well still, and it seems like Cam Carroll's still fighting his way to make sure that he gets some snaps this year.
I mean, he's going to get snaps.
Yeah.
There'll be snaps for him. I think Florida's going to run the ball a ton. I thought he was crazy when he got here, but he's earned it. He runs hard. I think he's faster than most people would think at his size. And he's he's the best pass catcher. He's the best pass catcher in that group. And I think the other thing too that maybe we didn't even talk about it in terms of Florida being Cam. I think one, you need another running. You need the
J5 still alive. Breaking up a little bit. J5 short circuit reference. You ever seen that movie? You broke up a little bit.
Oh, let me restart this computer and I'll come back.
All right. Nick said Cam Carroll, best pass catching running back out of the group. So excited to see what happens there. Obviously, Montrell Johnson, a guy that, did very, very well for Florida last year. Probably a guy that's still a little bit under the radar. Trevor Etienne, obviously very talented, both different type of backs. Trevor Etienne also gets the name recognition of his brother Travis playing for the Jaguars and obviously doing really well at Clemson there. But Silk, that seems like a solid group, and I'm definitely excited to see how they carry this offense, because I think that them being as good as they hopefully are is going to allow Graham Mertz to not only make some of the short and intermediate throws, but to be able to protect him and, maybe even make one of those deep ball passes.
Yeah, I think they're going to use Cam to wear defenses down in that fourth quarter. If we got a lead, he's a bigger back than the other two, and I think Montrell, and they have plenty of size, but when I see any visuals of Cam Carroll, he looks like an NFL, SEC running back. And, that's a bruiser. We got some different styles. We got some guys that could, got good vision, great feet, and then you just bring a heavier guy in the fourth quarter that's just as good as the front two, the first two, and you're just wearing defenses down. So that's the role I see Cam Carroll in. I love that he can catch the ball out of the backfield. And then, it's less stress and pressure. If one of those guys go down, we worried about, throwing Trey Young well out there, a freshman. Mm-hmm. We got a veteran guy that understands the offense and can keep us, keep the chains moving and keep the offense going, because a lot of it's going to be predicated off of play-action football in the run game.
Absolutely. So that group seems to just continue to impress throughout the fall. Excited to see how those snaps shake out, but I definitely think that you'll see more Cam Carroll than we thought when he announced his transfer 7-8 months ago to University of Florida. So that group is as good as advertised. We'll wait for Nick to come back where we talk a little bit about more on the offensive line, and we'll probably pause that discussion because we're going to talk a little bit more about it later in the program. But seems like Arlis Boardingham, Dante Zanders, and Odom are your three options there at tight end, but Arlis Boardingham continues to impress, and I think that you're going to see a lot out of him. He's just a little bit different than those guys. Maybe his blocking isn't as sure as an Odom or a Zanders, but it's hard to keep what we've heard off the field, especially the lack of production from tight end last year at Florida.
Yeah, just a playmaker. I'm glad to hear it from, because we're all we started the off season and even going into spring football, we're talking about just if the offensive line is healthy and we could run the ball, we'll be okay and play defense. But to start hearing guys like Arlis Boardingham and this group of young wide receivers making plays outside of the run game is just super optimistic and good things to hear from this offense. Being able to hit the running back throws. Some of the tight end intermediate throws, I think it's just going to make our offense click a little better this year. I don't think Graham Mertz is a better quarterback than or skill set, I would say, or ceiling is higher than Anthony Richardson. But some of the small things that we need to do just to be a successful offense, like hitting intermediate throws, being able to throw a slant that's not too hot, being able to hit swing passes, whatever it may be, it's going to make us an overall better team. My biggest concern right now, like I think Artis Bornham is going to be real good. The drop off from him as a there is a drop off from him to the other guys as far as playmaking abilities. I like Odom. He can block well. He could be a reliable catcher, but getting open may be not his strength. So there is a drop-off. We need Artis Bornham to stay healthy, and we also need the offensive line to stay as healthy as possible. If these guys stay healthy, like 8 wins, 9 wins is not far-fetched whatsoever. It's just all about health at this point.
Absolutely. Nick, do we have you back?
I think so. I might just try no video. I don't know what's going on with my internet.
All right, that works. Let's get into – we'll pause the offensive line discussion here just because we're going to talk a little bit more about them, and we're going to also pause the defensive tackle discussion. We'll talk about the outside of the defense here. Before we do that, let's give a quick shout-out to our friends over at FanGo Tickets. Appreciate a number of you people. A number of you guys have already signed up for FanGo. If you are a Florida Gators fan, a Tampa Bay Lightning fan, or a Tampa Bay Bucks fan, it is the place to go to be able to put your season tickets up in an Airbnb style situation where you can pick and choose which games you want to put up for sale. There's no fees for the buyer. So if you're looking for tickets for, the Florida Tennessee game, the Florida Arkansas game, maybe a Tampa Bay Lightning game, maybe a Bucks game, go check out fangotickets.com. Started by a Florida Gator alum. Great website, great new opportunity for you to be able to put your tickets up for sale. And like I said, if you are looking to buy tickets, there are no fees for the buyer. All right, so let's get into the defensive side of the ball. And yes, Michael Roper asked the question, is Zip out for the season? The answer is yes, he will be back hopefully next season. Nick, we talked a little bit about Justus Boone on that defensive end. Obviously, Princely Umemelan is as good as advertised so far in practice as well. Jack Pyburn is a name. Tyreek Sapp, is a name. Kelby Collins. Talk just a little bit about the defensive ends.
Yeah, it's you're gonna have two different kind of positions there. Princely is the Jack, and I think they call it the F. It's your edge rusher, and then you've got guys like Kelby Collins and Justus Boone was playing more of that defensive end. I think we've already seen Tyreek Sapp slide over there. I think that's going to be your next starter. So you're losing Boone hurts. You've got a bunch of depth. It's not really proven when you talk about guys like Pyburn, Cameron James, who's just a freshman, TJ Searcy, who's just a freshman, Kelby Collins, just a freshman, and then Jack Pyburn. So there's some guys there. I think you're just going to have to, challenge some guys to step up and maybe play a little bit more than you thought they would have to at this point for this, for where they are. But you've got guys, and I think you'll be okay out there. And I'm interested to see what Tyreek Sapp does body-wise if he stays, like I said before, if he stays at 270 or if he tries to drop some weight playing outside again.
Silk, any additional thoughts? I know we kind of talked about it with Justus Boone, and then we'll get on to linebackers here.
Yeah, just more to say. I think Tyreek Sapp is your go-to guy there. We'll see how fast he adjusts in camp-wise. But he did do some defensive end during spring as well. So they have been, using him in different spots, trying to get some versatility out of him. But that's all. I think we just wait and see what the young boys look like. I think we recruited well at the position. We brought some talent in. And now we get to see what these guys look like, after developing a little bit. Make sure y'all pound that like button, hit subscribe, like. And that helps us a big time with climbing the algorithms and getting this thing buzzing a little bit. So we appreciate y'all.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's go to linebacker here quickly. Nick, I know that you wrote about it in one of your On 3 articles entitled Double Take with Della Torre. What has surprised you from Florida Gators camp? When asked the question, has anything surprised you during fall camp? You mentioned the linebackers. Obviously, Ventrell Miller and Amari Burney, 120 games of experience between the two of them. They left. And then you mentioned the linebackers. And so that's a group of Taraji Mitchell, Deuce Spurlock, Manny Nunnery, Derek Wingo, Shamar James, Scooby Williams, and Jaden Robinson. Seems to me like Billy Napier's pretty high on them, but also that you might be high on them as well. What are your give us your take there, and then Silk, give us your thoughts.
Yeah, I don't know that Taraji Mitchell is a better in coverage than Amari Burney or Ventrell Miller. I think that'll be more of Shamar James's role. I just thought it stood out to me that he showed up in first week of spring, was already calling the defense. Obviously a 6-year player, has dealt with some injuries, brings veteran leadership to that room where you've got some younger guys. And I think Shamar James is back at practice. Keep him healthy. He's going to be huge. And then behind them, you've got some younger guys. Derek Wingo, not young, but he's backing up. Scooby Williams, borderline young, redshirt sophomore, hasn't played a ton yet. And then Deuce Spurlock and I think Manny Nunnery kind of filling in there the third spot. And I think Nunnery's surprised me a little bit as well. Just really instinctual. A guy that I kind of only penciled in to play on special teams. I think he might, get a little bit of run on defense too.
Yeah, the biggest thing is a physical presence. I liked Ventrell Miller, but when he was out, there was just a lack of physical presence from the linebackers we had, whether it was Burney, where Burney could run sideline to sideline, and he did improve. Shout to Jay Bates on Bateman on getting him better as a linebacker, but there was a different element missing that you want from your linebacker, and it's just a physical presence and imposing presence. And I think Mitchell and Shamar James is going to bring that back, even with the guys that are backing them up. They just bring a different physical presence, coming downhill, filling holes. The defensive line is going to make them better as well. We got a better defensive tackle room, so that's going to improve their play. But I think it's just from hearing what I'm hearing, guys at camp, when they speak about Miguel Mitchell, and they're saying he's a heat-seeking missile. And he's ready to thump guys. It's just an element at linebacker we've been missing for a little bit. I know Ventrell brought that, but often injured guy, we missed that presence quite a bit from our defense the last few years. So that's the biggest thing I think we're going to get from the linebacker group this year.
Yeah, and real quick, I misspoke. Shamar wasn't at practice yesterday, but he should be back either late this week. I don't know if you have him scrimmage. They're going to scrimmage again this week, but on schedule to be back this week.
No, originally said that he would be out for 1 to 2 weeks, Shamar James, that is, and wanted to be cautious to rush him back to the field. Obviously, a guy that has, quite a bit of experience from last year, including the spring and up to his injury here in fall. A guy that's, definitely penned in as a starter, 47 tackles last year, 2 sacks. Forced fumble, freshman all SEC. So it's expected that he is going to be, not only recovered, but, certainly to take that spot back. But I do think it gives an opportunity with somebody like Derek Wingo, who's taken those snaps to get better and to play against the ones and to, continue to grow his skill set, because Florida's going to rely on him. I know one of the big things that Florida, missed last year is while they had the physical presence that you were mentioning, Florida was also missing some linebacking support when it came to passing patterns and passing routes. So, hopefully with a little bit more athleticism in that backfield, a little bit faster, a little bit more sideline to sideline, Florida can, improve there, because I know that was a big gap in Florida's defense last year when they were getting gashed up by a lot of tight ends and a lot of your short to intermediate routes that were going through the center of the field. But yeah, no, good group as a whole. Surprised by what we've seen out of a few of those guys, and excited that the Gators were able to get Taraji Mitchell into that group. Let's go to
I want to see Manny Nunnery, though. A lot of people speaking highly of him, so I'm excited to see him in action. Haven't really seen him get busy. Michael Stewart in the comments asked me, why am I in the locker room? Because I'm checking on my nephews, Michael. Making sure everything's okay.
Making sure that locker for Silk Jr. is cleaned and ready to go for his arrival on the campus in a few years.
I had him I took a picture on accident. I didn't know what was going to be in the picture. So last time we was on campus, I took a picture of him at Nilen's locker, and then realized he had a picture of the top 10 defensive ends that they were ranking for this
PFF,
season. Yeah, PFF. I didn't realize they had that list in the picture, but a Florida State fan quickly pointed that out. But yeah, shout out to Nilen. About to get busy this year.
Yeah, he told us he saw that, printed it out, put it in the locker, see it every day.
Hey, whatever motivates you, I'm excited to see it. Let's get to the defensive backs. Nick, I know I've been going to you first, so Silk, we'll start with you. Been dealing with some injuries there. I know Jason Marshall was out for a couple of practices there, maybe just a practice. But Jalen Kimber, I know Jaden Hill is back. We all know the season used to go as Jaden Hill went. So
let's kill that.
Don't know if that's the tagline for this year, because the last time we made the tagline, the team went 6-7. But defensive backs seem to be doing well. Silk, what's your take of what you've heard so far?
Well, you had a couple guys sit out last practice, like you said, Jason Marshall, or in the scrimmage, Jason Marshall, Devin Moore. I think so. Also Jaden Hill. But overall, the talent is there. I think the biggest thing is seeing Kimber without that cast, hearing that he's making waves, and even when Jason Marshall's out, that just give other guys an opportunity to step up with the freshmen. I feel really good about Mustard, Dijon. He's going to be a really good one. Jakeem Jackson. I think we got some studs that we can rely on, and we don't have to worry about bums over Baghdad if one of our starters was to go down, one of our veteran guys was to go down. So cornerback is, I'm feeling like a bullfighter with that room. We just got to, stay healthy. Devin Moore, I think it could be, potential to be a first, second round pick type talent. But it's all about health. He missed the entire last season. Same thing with Kimber. Our cornerback room just got a little weird last year. It was already weird with the cushions, but us losing some talent in that room, it was a big drop-off when those guys went out. So I think we required some depth there. I feel real good. I feel good with Corey Raymond taking over the entire room and doing what he wanted to do. So I think we're going to be able to press and blitz a little bit more and get a little bit more excited, because we got guys that we could put on the island. Jam, play off ball. Jason Marshall thrives at playing, up close and personal with these receivers. So we'll get to see a little bit more than that. But cornerback room, I have no pressure, no worries whatsoever.
Yeah,
Safety's another story, but DB corner, I feel good.
Yeah, I think it's just health. I think you're just kind of giving Jason Marshall some rest. Corey Raymond has said that Jalen Kimber's an NFL cornerback. Just obviously had to just had to battle through some stuff last year. I'm interested to see Jaden Hill, him playing nickel, playing star, and how that shakes out with him and Jadarius Perkins. But like you said, so there's a bunch of talent there. I think maybe I've been high on Dijon Johnson, but I've heard, hey, listen, he's just playing kind of on instincts right now. He just got here. But I think he's making plays. And if you make plays in practice, you're going to find your way to the field. But between Jakeem, Marshall, Hill, Dijon, and Devin Moore, just stay healthy. You've got some depth there, but, stay healthy.
What are you hearing about the star position? I didn't mean to cut you off, Dan, but what are you hearing about star? I like Sharif Denson a lot. Is he making any waves in camp?
Yeah, I just don't think he's in contention to start there. I think they're going to go with Perkins and Jaden Hill. Those are going to be their two guys. Sharif can do it, but in terms of right now, I think you've got a guy in Jaden Hill and Perkins who've been in college since Spurrier was here.
Yeah,
since the Obama administration.
Yeah.
Yep. Nick, any cause for concern with Devin Moore or Jason Marshall being in non-contact uniforms?
Billy said return to play protocol, which to me sounds like concussion protocol for Devin Moore. Okay. He was out at the scrimmage, but just like in tennis shoes, has pads on, holding his helmet, but didn't go through anything. And it's a different injury. Last year was the shoulder injury. So this sounds like possibly a concussion. So it's a pattern of injuries, but it's not like the same thing happening over and over again.
I like that it's not that shoulder again. That was my biggest worry, that he re-aggravated that shoulder. So don't like head injuries, but I'll take a different injury for sure.
That's where you get into like a weird area when you're only saying, upper body, lower body, because you say Devin Moore out, practice, upper body, and you're like, all right, well, shoulder is upper body.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Y'all hiding it from us.
We got safety. Again, we talked about Kamari Wilson probably being penciled in as one of the starters. You have RJ Moten, and then you have who am I thinking of?
Miguel Mitchell.
Miguel Mitchell. And then you have a few freshmen back there as well. Nick, has any of that been clarified at all?
No, and that's a position that I am not confident with heading into the season. I think Kamari Wilson has looked all right. I'm out of the Miguel Mitchell hive. RJ Moten,
the whole hive. You gone?
I left the hive.
Man, watching from afar.
Nosebleeds, huh?
Yeah. I love Jordan Castell. I think he's getting a ton of burn, a ton of run right now. And then RJ Moten's a guy that brings a bunch of veteran leadership. I'm interested to see what he looks like when he's playing, in an SEC competition, because I think there was a stat that we wrote about, or that we found, that he hadn't given up a touchdown in pass coverage at Michigan. I think you're playing some different speed here.
So you think that streak ends this year?
It's already
hopefully
ended
not
in practice.
Yeah, it's already ended in practice, but then, that's not a game. But it definitely looks like he's getting used to the speed on this roster.
Safety a little different with the young boys. I love Jordan Castell, but if those guys turn into barbecue chicken, then you just go with a young boy. My biggest concern is the clips that I'm seeing is the tackling from the safety position. You're the last line of defense. I want to see my safeties run that tunnel, run that alley a little bit better, and bring down. I don't know if we're not bringing guys down to the ground in camp either. So I'm judging them with a little ignorance. But I want to see my safeties, not just in pass defense, but also in run defense, tackle better.
Yeah, and that was certainly something we saw a lot last year. Miguel Mitchell, missed a number of tackles. Kamari Wilson missed a number of tackles. The team as a whole missed a ton of tackles. In fact, the team for the last decade has missed a ton of tackles. So hopefully those are some things that are getting shored up, on this defensive side of the ball, because Florida allowed so many plays to go for first downs or for 10, 20, 30 yards, whatever it might have been, just because of those missed tackles. So even if you allow a play to happen, it's stopping it in the tracks rather than letting that go, that 4-yard completion go for, 15, 20, 30 yards. So we'll definitely be interested to watch there. Was a concern last year, looks to still be a concern. Obviously, they've recruited the position well, continue to recruit the position well, but that's certainly an area of concern for the Gators. Before we get into the offensive line and defensive tackles, any other final thoughts on what we've seen thus far, Nick? Any special teams updates to report on? Do we have a kicker?
No, not that I know of. It'll be interesting. I think that's probably the position group that everyone's paying attention to, on the edge of their seats, worrying about losing sleep.
Already lost it. All right. I've seen bad kicking. I've seen good kicking, and I've seen bad kicking. I'm hopeful. Don't know why, but I'm hopeful. All right, let's get into the offensive line, breaking that down a little bit further. Before we do that, let's give a shout out to our friends over at Home Field Apparel. Again, Silk is wearing a Home Field Apparel shirt right now.
Stone Cold Drip.
About 15 to 20 different Florida Gators retro logos, super soft cotton, great shirts, get compliments every time that I wear them. So go check them out. If you have a friend, family member, spouse, coworker, whatever it might be, that went to another school, they are adding a bunch of new schools each and every week. So go check them out, homefieldapparel.com. Use promo code Stadium and Gale at checkout, and you'll get 15% off of your order. Nick, let's break down the offensive line. You mentioned some starters, so we'll start with you here. To run through, we had at left tackle Austin Barber and Jordan Herman, left guard Micah Mazuka and Najee Harris, center Kingsley Aguakin and Jake Slaughter, right guard Richie Leonard and Jalen Farmer, right tackle Damian George and Lindell Hudson. Cam Waits is back in a limited capacity. Micah Mazuka has returned. Richie Leonard, I guess, was in what they used to call the pit, but off to the side with some other injured players. And Lindell Hudson got into a minor car accident, although he seems to be recovering. Nick, some concern. I know that we were a little bit higher on this group. Obviously, Keontae Goodwin is transferring to be closer to his mom, but that's a group where not a ton of experience. You have a decent maybe front five, but after that, there's some big question marks that we're having.
Yeah, I think you have 3 tackles, and one of them I think was, a slightly above average tackle at FIU. I think if Barber were to get hurt, you're putting Lindell Hudson at like left tackle or Damian George at left tackle. I think, you have a 2 deep, but really, there's a tier of that 2 deep. So you've got to get some depth and get somebody ready. I asked Rob Sale when we spoke to him, how many offensive linemen do you want to feel good about? I think his answer is always going to be more. He said maybe 8 right now. So that'd be like 3 guys behind them. I think one of those guys is Najee Harris. They really like Jake Slaughter. We haven't seen a ton of him. So while I like Florida's starting 5, I don't know that there's depth to withstand the kind of, injuries or at least, non-contact jerseys we've seen along the offensive line. So Richie Leonard is back. Micah Mazuka is back. So you've got your starting 5 back, and I guess the one good thing about guys being injured in camp is that you get experience for Najee Harris, and you get experience for Rod Kearney and Bryce Lovett, some of the younger guys.
Yeah, Florida's lucky. Lindell Hudson, kind of a late grab for that recruiting class, probably just used as an additional piece of depth, but could be a situation where he does play quite a bit. So to be able to at least get some experience, grabbing that right before the transfer portal, because I think he was slated to go to USF. So, unfortunate circumstances, have plagued the Gators on the offensive line, but at least they were able to go grab that last person. No matter how much we see him or how good he is, he's right now your number 2 right tackle. So what are your thoughts on that front 5 and back 5 there?
Yeah, they just got to stay healthy. I think this is just my opinion, but it seems like the staff is being precautionary with injuries and playing the safe side a little bit. But and while you're playing precautionary, taking those measures to keep the team healthy, to start the season healthy, like you said, that provides opportunity for these younger boys to get some reps. I think we know we could get out of Mazuka, so seeing who backs him. Tackles is the biggest worry of any of them, but I think all the depth and the guys behind the immediate 5 getting reps in camp is going to be key and important, and we just got to battle the war of attrition. We win the war of attrition in the trenches, I think we're going to have a successful season.
Yeah, Micah Mazuka, good to have him back. Good to keep him on campus after a little bit of a flare-up last year, or last spring. But, a guy that comes in, just as a reminder, Pro Football Focus gave him an 82.9 on the season, was on Pro Football Network's Team of the Week in week 3 of last year as a starter for Baylor. Comes in, obviously, with a lot of experience. Again, Austin Barber, we saw a lot out of him, freshman all SEC. Again, he's going to be getting a majority of that playing time now, or is going to be a starter, right? So making sure that you can stay consistent and not just when you're called upon, but each and every play that you're out there. And then going back through the list, certainly Kingsley Aguakin is getting quite a bit of national recognition as one of those guys that maybe is an all SEC type of player at center. Florida had some snapping issues in that game against Oregon State last year. So hopefully we get those cleaned up. Richie Leonard, a guy that's been on campus for a little while now, gets that opportunity. And Damian George, a former heavy player at Alabama, loses that starting spot due to injury, comes to transfer, is penciled in. So those 5 I am very excited about. But, we've not seen much out of Jordan Herman, a JUCO transfer. Najee Harris is a freshman. Jake Slaughter's been on campus for a few years now. Jalen Farmer, don't know much, about him other than, a recruit that was, highly sought, but again, hasn't played at that speed yet. And then Lindell Hudson, comes from FIU, just obviously some cause for concern if injuries do start to happen. And when you have shoulder injuries, those start to get re-aggravated. So, hopefully, Florida, with the precautions that they've been taking, can keep this group healthy. Because if not, there's just a big gap, in my opinion, between 1 and 2.
Yeah, and Cam Waits is a guy who could have played. I thought it was wild to see him back. He's just in the pit, right. But just that he's weight bearing and doing stuff, around 8 months after an Achilles surgery. So I don't know when he will be back in football shape or cleared to go through, practice to then get back on the field. But he'd be a guy. It would be huge to get him because he has played tackle and he's played guard. And he's would be a swing guy for you. And if he were 100% healthy, he would be probably your 4th offensive tackle. Okay. If they wanted to do that, because they moved him to guard kind of late last year, but he played tackle at Louisiana, and when he first got to Florida, played tackle.
Yeah, looking through this list here too, we didn't mention Roger Kearney, the freshman. He seems to be getting quite a bit of snaps on that second and third team, so he's a guy that could play a little bit as well. Bryce Lovett, Nick, you mentioned his name as well, a freshman. Maybe you see him, certainly you don't want to necessarily throw in a freshman offensive lineman unless you have to. And then Cam Waits, the transfer from Louisiana, 6'8", 364 pounds, coming off an Achilles injury. So again, those are one of those things that you just want to slowly work back. But a guy that understands the offensive system, spent last year, just learning more about the way that the Gators are going to operate, but certainly was recruited by Billy Napier over at Louisiana. So one of the few that transferred over from that university when Billy Napier came over. So, and then Jordan Herman, a guy that the Gators were able to get out of community college. So I think Florida only had 2 JUCO transfers last year. So again, a guy that you're going to rely on, but he's 6'8", 371 pounds. So a huge offensive line group this year. So again, I think that the only thing that we can say about this group is health, and health.
No doubt.
All right, let's get to the defensive tackles. But we appreciate our friend Stone Cold Drip Sauce
There you
Tin.
go.
Hey, back at it. Appreciate you each and every week showing up. Ready to see this team shut the doubters up.
Oh, do that again. I had a Rick Ross grunt. That's what I thought.
That's why it's more of a grunt than a.
Yeah, it's more of a grunt.
Blowing the nostrils out. All right. Let's get to defensive tackle. The Gators bring in a lot of help for that position. Let's see. Let's work through this list right now. Cam Jackson, obviously the transfer from Memphis, a guy 6'6", 371 pounds, comes in as a junior, is your expected starter there. No real doubt about it. Desmond Watson, a guy that I know a lot of fans are rooting for, 6'5", 439 pounds. Caleb Banks also transfers from Louisville. Any other names? Jamari Lyons, I know, is a guy that's playing defensive tackle as well. But any additional thoughts? Jalen Humphreys is also a guy that has slated to play that role. And Chris McClellan, I think, is he working? I know he's working inside. I know he's worked a little bit outside too. But give us your thoughts on the defensive tackle group.
Yeah, I think you got a really solid 4 with Banks and Cam Jackson starting. McClellan, Des Watson behind them. I think Will Norman will get a bunch of playing time this year as well. Those are 5 guys, and you're not going to have to ask Desmond Watson to play, the 360 snaps he played last year. I think Jamari Lyons is getting a lot of praise from the coaching staff. But you've got some guys there now, and it's not to the point where Georgia running, like their hockey line changes and just running out a whole new group of 5-star defensive line. But the depth, I think, is going to help Florida, because we talk about third down a lot, but you're losing on first down, you're losing on second down, because you got guys who are playing their 45th snap of the game, 50th snap of the game in the fourth quarter. I think it'll help to get a healthy rotation with McClellan, Norman, Watson, Banks, and Cam Jackson. You would have had Tyreek Sapp there, and he can still go back and forth depending on how the other guys are helping there. So there's a ton of depth inside, and that's just simply the transfer portal and the recruiting class. So those are all those guys that we're mentioning there, like Billy Napier's guys. And that's a position group that I think is in a totally different place heading into this season than it was last year.
The whole front seven, man, just it flips of both rooms, all rooms. And I think that the hit rate is going to be very good with the transfers that they brought in. Not a lot of fluff and a lot of just, people taking up schollies here. But, yeah, Desmond Watson getting less reps and not being a guy we rely on for starter snaps is going to be major key. This year, if he strip a fumble, he may take it to the crib. He may be, fresh. He may stiff.
We'd love to see it.
Take that thing to the house a little bit, bro. Looking like Fred Taylor in that 21. Seeing Will Norman, like him beside Chris McClellan this past weekend, seeing how big he is as a freshman, and hearing that he's a guy that we could get some reps out of. We don't have to rely on the young boy, but he definitely could jump into that rotation and provide us some snaps as well. But our starters are 2 guys that wasn't on campus last year. That's just huge. Gervon went on to the pros, and Desmond gets to get less reps. So it's just, a lot of wealth at that position. And that's going to be key to getting wins. When we go out to Utah and the altitude's a little different, the guys may get a little winded, who knows. But I think we'll have the depth in the right positions in the trenches to be able to stay fresh and do what we need to do, man. But absolute upgrade at the defensive line. The whole defensive line, but defensive tackles is just a lot of wealth.
Yeah. You guys hit the nail on the head. There's just not much of a better opportunity that you have to be a good, strong defense and to be able to rotate out some defensive tackles and not rely on the same 2 for a majority of the game. They're doing a lot of work, putting a lot of work in each and every play. They're getting beat up. They're getting pushed down. They're getting winded. So to be able to have a group of 4 that you can steadily rely on and then, be able to add in a 5th, those are the differences, right? Florida lost a lot of 1-score games last year. And maybe if you have some additional push, you wear down the other team's offensive line a little bit more, maybe a couple of those games get flipped and turn into wins. So, they say the SEC is one in the trenches. So, Florida is definitely upgraded on the defensive line, and the offensive line, at least that top 5 looks solid. Now it's just a matter of health and, seeing this team all put it together here. So,
I think these defensive tackles also is going to cause havoc with moving pockets. Quarterbacks won't be able to get comfortable and sit still. I think we got some guys with some get off with Caleb Banks and Cam Jackson that can also pass rush and not just, take up space in the run game. Because that's a lot of what Desmond Watson is. He's suited to take up just blockers and let the linebackers roam free a little bit. But now we got some defensive tackles that's going to crush, pockets, change the launch point for quarterbacks. They're going to have to move around a little bit more. And then, we got Uber Nealon and some monsters off the edge. So, overall, it's just going to change our whole defensive look. That's just how important defensive tackle is.
Yeah, while we look this up, I'm going to look up last year because I know Florida did not get much in way of a ton of what they call havoc. Pro Football Focus does. I'll see if I can find this. That's certainly something that Florida's going to want to do. And now defensive tackle is probably never going to be a position that, gets a ton of snaps and their presence is felt in other ways on the defense. But if I remember correctly, and I'll see if I can pull it up quickly. If not, we'll talk about it next week. But one of the issues that Florida was having last year was, they were 95th in the country last year with Havoc, and that's trying to get after the quarterback and force them to make quicker decisions. So defensive tackle room really struggled last year in terms of doing that, and it's not necessarily just the quality of person that was in the role. Obviously, Gervon Dexter gets drafted high in the NFL draft, and Desmond Watson does what he had to, but there's just no depth there. They weren't fresh, and obviously it's going to wear and tear. So being able to have this group of 4 or 5 that go in, I'm super excited about Cam Jackson, as I think most fans are. So we're excited to see what this group is, but this could be probably the most improved group I think over last year as a whole. So let's see here. Any final thoughts before we get into this Utah game a little bit?
Nah. Let's talk about Utah.
All right. So quick question here while we pull it up. Kind of a tricky question because you can't necessarily take position out, but Isaac Earl said best 5 DBs are on the field at once, regardless of position. Who are you choosing?
Oh, like 5 corners at this point, probably.
Say what?
Probably 5 corners at this point. If you're going with our best 5 DBs, who I think is probably going to be the top of our cornerback room, and that's just a lot to be proven from the safety position. Just not hearing okay things, but not the guys in our cornerback room. I think are NFL Sunday guys. On the 2 deep alone, you're gonna get Sunday guys. So I would just go, of course, our 3 top guys: Jason Marshall, Jalen Kimber, Devin Moore. And then you get into Jakeem Jackson and Dijon Mustard. Dijon, that's my 5 right there. It's hard for me to pick a safety right now, just going off the track record and what I'm hearing. I just got to see and hear more. But those are my 5. You just can't throw corners at safety like that. So,
Nick?
Yeah, I was trying to think. I wouldn't put a safety in the group, and then are you ready to already say like Jakeem Jackson is in that? Dijon's in that. Maybe I'd throw 1 safety or star and add Jaden Hill or Jadarius Perkins. Throw one of them in there.
That's nasty work.
That's nasty work.
All right, so let's get into the final part of our show. Want to talk a little bit about Utah as that game is nearing in 17 days. But before we do that, let's give one final shout out to our friends over at Alumni Hall. They are on Archer Road in Gainesville. You can visit them at alumnihall.com. The most Florida Gator stuff that you're going to find anywhere, whether it's clothing, whether it's accessories, whether it's grilling and tailgate tools and things that you might need. Go visit them on your way to Gainesville, or when you're in Gainesville. Go visit Alumni Hall right there on Archer Road, right after you get off of 75. Again, the best and biggest selection. They're going to have the black jerseys for sale. We can talk a little bit about that too, because I know the fans were in a little bit of a tizzy when they saw that at the bookstore. They're going to have black jerseys available. The coaches' polos, Nike, Jordan, Champion, everything that you could want. So go visit alumnihall.com, the best place to get your Florida Gators apparel and accessories. Some news out of Salt Lake City that we saw come up. First things first, Utah does full contact practices with their quarterback. Surprised.
Insanity, I would say. To be going live with the quarterback, watching some of the clips, they were getting blown up. But I don't know what the update is on Cam Rising, where he's at with it. But Brandon Rose goes down to the hospital. I haven't got any clarification on exactly what the injury is. There's a lot of rumors out there that I don't want to just report, but they're saying that he may be out from anywhere from 4, 6 to 8 weeks type injury. So it's gonna be interesting to see what they do with Cam Rising. But to be playing your backup quarterback, with your starter already out, coming off of ACL, and getting himself ready for fall camp in that manner to go live. It's two things. They weren't sure what they was getting from neither of these guys, so they wanted to see some live action. If these guys were lighting it up in 707 and they kind of had a gap in between the number 2 guy, I don't think they're going live like this. I think they went live to see if these guys are gamers, like they like to say. Some guys don't practice well, but when the bullets start flying, they practice a little better. So I think Whittingham was trying to see what these guys look like when the bullets are flying, and that may have cost him his his QB2 to start the season.
Yeah, so let's do a high level quick discussion here. Cam Rising out with a knee injury. Kyle Whittingham, the head coach of Utah, said that he would want him to be healthy 10 to 14 days before the game against the Gators to feel comfortable putting him out. We are 17 days out. We know that Cam Rising has been at practice, but not participating in live practices. QB1. Brandon Rose is the number 2 quarterback. He takes a hit. Again, there's rumors, so we're not going to talk about what the actual injury was. Does end up going to the hospital, and they said that they're talking weeks, if not months, for his recovery. That leaves Bryson Barnes and Nate Johnson battling for that second string spot, which again, if Cam Rising's not fully healthy, and listen, I know that this game is very, very important to Utah, but does not determine whether they can go to the playoff. Truly, they can still win the Pac-12 or whatever they call it now, the Pac-12. So, it'd be important to make sure that they're not rushing him back in order to try to go after that conference crown for them. So that's certainly a bit of a coaching decision that we'll have to see. But throwing in a backup quarterback when your starter is not yet starting is just an odd thing to allow them to take direct hits at any point. Right. Any direct hit on a quarterback, I always thought was a bit taboo.
Yeah, I don't want my quarterback getting smacked. I don't care like what's going on.
I don't want Michael Leon getting smacked.
Who's that?
Exactly right. He's a Florida Gators 4th string wide receiver right now.
Quarterback.
Yeah,
that's what I meant. 4th string quarterback.
Yeah, take him down to the ground. I was just playing.
UConn transfer.
No, I don't see the benefit of. Like, you still can run by and just slap his shoulder pad, and there's ways of counting sacks. But getting him blown up and taken down to the ground, like, I just think that's very caveman football.
And it just didn't seem like an accidental hit. It seemed like they were playing, and probably were playing before that, as if they were playing a live game. Which is,
they did it in spring as well. They went full takedowns of the quarterback in practice and also the spring game. It was vicious stuff.
So it looks like they'll go with if Cam Rising can't play, and Kyle Whittingham said that 10 to 14 days at Pac-12 Media Day, it's arbitrary. Also, it's not going to be Kyle Whittingham's decision. If Cam Rising plays, that'll be up to the doctors. If he's cleared to play, Kyle Whittingham will play him. If he's not cleared to play, or if he doesn't feel well, the doctors aren't confident, they might not be able to play him. I think they go with Bryson Barnes now.
Former walk-on.
Seen the field 13 times, 10 times last season. Was Rising's backup. Finished last year with 57 pass attempts for 430 yards, 4 touchdowns, 2 interceptions.
I think it's similar to us in those regards, right? I think you have. I'm sorry, Dan, I didn't mean to cut you off. I think you have. I think Nate Johnson is probably the guy that's similar to, like, I would say, a Max Brown. I don't know how. Like, I'm not hearing great things about his arm, but as far as athletic abilities, he's a 10-500 meter guy that could break the pocket and maybe cause some havoc. But he's pretty much a glorified wide receiver at quarterback at this point. But they have a similar situation to us as far as QB2, QB3. I think.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right, Silk. Nate Johnson, obviously a track guy. Let's see, offensive player of the year as a high school player in TRAC, probably one of their football divisions. TRAC offensive player of the year was the CIF Central Selection Athlete of the Year. Threw for 1,600 yards as a senior, 94 carries for 812 yards. But only rushed, I think he had one completion last year for 16 yards, 5 rushes for 51 yards and 2 touchdowns. So again, a lot of inexperience there. Bryson Barnes, like you said, former walk-on, went 37 to 57, 2 interceptions, 4 touchdowns, 430 yards, 20 carries, 116 yards. I think when you talk about arbitrary dates, and Nick, like you said, Kyle Whittingham said about Rising playing, I think, with your backup number 2 out, I think that arbitrary becomes a lot more arbitrary in terms of what that actual timeline is, right? If you are confident in a backup, I think that you play your cards a little bit differently than if you have to go to 3rd string or 4th string. So again, big news out of Salt Lake City with the Utes. Would be interested to know who of the fan base is going to be there. Silk, you're going to be there, right?
Yeah.
And Nick, you will be there. If you're watching in the chat, looks like a couple people are in here. Michael Roper said that he's staying close to downtown. Aaron Hodges is staying downtown Salt Lake City. Would be curious to know how many fans are going out there. Obviously, a much smaller stadium than Ben Hill Griffin. I think it holds about 51,000. But curious to see. A lot of people I know that I've talked to are going to make the flight out to Salt Lake City. So if you're going, drop it in the chat here, and maybe you guys can meet up and do a little Stadium and Gale pop up.
Yeah, let's make it on real orange and blue out there in Salt Lake.
And then finally, the commotion over black jerseys. Nick, we've talked about black jerseys for a while. You were ready to break the news, but we couldn't. When we interviewed Billy Napier, it finally comes out that they're going to wear them against Arkansas in a game where the proceeds of selling those jerseys are going to be helping the veterans. But Nick, the jerseys came out. Silk, want to get your drip thoughts too. Comes out, looks like the traditional Gators jersey, but I guess across the chest it has the script Gators. Nick, do you have any additional insight into those jerseys? Is that what they are going to look like, or was that just a fan jersey that's created for sale? Give us your thoughts.
No,
you're not.
You'll see. I think the 15th tomorrow, Tuesday. I think Tuesday they're going to go on sale at Alumni Hall. I think what you're going to see, obviously, the material,
right.
And you'll have the SEC patch, and I think a Gator logo patch. I just think I don't like the Gator script. Maybe I'm getting old, but I just didn't like the Gator script. I think it made it look like a cheap jersey. But there was a lot of outrage, and it was like, I don't know what you thought Florida was going to do. I just always thought like that one Marco Wilson edit that's been around for like 7 years, and it's literally just making the current jersey black. Not really changing anything or going with a different design. I thought that looked really clean. I think that's exactly what they did, except they added that little Gator script across the like basically between where it would have the SEC patch on the upper chest and between the number, and now it just kind of looks jumbled up there.
I'm a different type of wash. I'm get off my lawn type of wash when it comes to jerseys. So I didn't have a lot of high expectations for the black. It's hard to go wrong with black. I think once that jersey goes onto a shoulder pads and, they put everything else around. I also don't think they're done with that jersey. I don't know if that's a finished product, what they put on. We'll see. But I don't think that's a finished product. I think it's going to be sauce when they drop it.
The jerseys are made.
Yeah, but they could patches and accessorizing the jersey, I think it still happen, right?
Maybe that was a plant. Maybe they wanted to, hey, let's leak something out and see what the reaction is.
Yeah, put the factory car out there before you put rims on it. You see what the streets say. I think it's going to look
testing.
It's hard to go wrong with putting black on jerseys. Like every team I've ever seen in the history of using black jersey, they always hit. So I think they're gonna be fine. You throw the pants and whatever the color of the helmet matters as well. But I'm not, bro. Go win some football games, bro.
Yeah.
I don't really get too caught up into the uniforms. I have my favorites and stuff, but Georgia, Bama, them guys got like a couple uniforms, bro. Bama got like 3 of them, home, away, and then alternative. You get in the same jersey. Just go win football games. The drip will take care of itself. McElwain pulled out some crocodile drip that was egregious that I had to lie and say I liked. So I'm just to the point where just keep it trill. I just think black will be all right.
You said you liked those at the time?
I had to lie at the time. You know, it's all about good PR. You know, we was down. We needed good PR, and then he threw out them ugly jerseys. I'm like, bro, we needed good PR, not more bad PR. So let me pretend I like it and see if I can get a hive of people to agree with me. Didn't work out. Most people said we're trash.
Yeah, I love it. All right, boys. Nick, you have Song of the Week. As a reminder, if you are watching, appreciate everybody that tuned in today. Please like and subscribe to us on YouTube. Please leave a comment. Please share after as well. Please support our sponsors. That's Allen Horn Insurance, thegatorverse.io. FanGo tickets. Again, think Airbnb for your tickets. Our friends over at Home Field Apparel, and of course, Alumni Hall, where you can get your jerseys tomorrow if you're watching on YouTube or if you're listening to us on the Apple Podcast or Spotify. Get them today. Just go run up to Alumni Hall, tell them Stadium and Gale sent you. Nick, oh my gosh. Silk, final thought before we leave.
Final thought, man. My final thought is if Kyle Whittingham sends Cam Rising out there, and I already told y'all how my defensive tackle is moving the lunch point. Armstrong is sending plenty of guests to that living room of what Cam Rising is trying to sit, man. So if they do trot him out there, we still gonna see Nate Johnson and the other guy. That's my take. So regardless, we're gonna see them other quarterbacks, bro, because my front seven is crazy and Armstrong is even crazier with the pressure he's gonna send. So, you know, let's bear down and get some good Gator football, some Gator defenses back, bro. We running down on Utes. That's my final take.
Send the Engage 8.
Engage 8, baby. I think we can get to the pass without engaging too, man. I just think, you know, engaging 8 is just gonna be piling on at that point.
Nick, any final thoughts before we head out of here?
No, that was a crazy take that you threw up on the screen, though.
Yeah, so before I give a final take, Tebow's _Tebone,
oh, that's crazy.
Which is a girl on top of, or a Gator on top of a girl. Don't want to know what's happening, but he said the Gator skin jerseys were the best jerseys we've ever had. We have the ability to block people in this chat. We're not going to do it because we're nice, but that's a take that I think you might be on an island with. Which, if segue here, want to give my prayers to those that were affected in the Maui and Lahaina fires. Certainly a terrible circumstance. So if you find it in your heart, I don't like to make tragedies about myself or share pictures of when I was there. But if you can really try to help those that need it. Hawaii is obviously so far from the United States in terms of getting materials, and just the access to labor and equipment and everything else is just not the same as if a situation were to happen here. So prayers to those that are in Hawaii and dealt with, an unspeakable disaster with the wildfires that really just decimated a town that was burnt almost completely down. So my prayers go to the island of Maui. Nick, give us your song of the week.
All My Life, Dirk and J. Cole.
I thought it was going to be Casey and JoJo.
Ha!
Could have been. That was my high school prom song. It was Casey and JoJo, All My Life.
A banger. And if you want that Gator skin jersey, just go to your local Marshalls, TJ Maxx,
Goodwill.
Ross, Goodwill. I'm pretty sure you can find that Gator skin jersey.
All right, boys. We'll see you at the same corner, same time next week.